Hello, it's Gary reaching out from Elevate Practice Intelligence, and welcome to a new 3-part series on Start My Practice. When you land on Elevate's homepage, I hope you have a greater sense of clarity on how Elevate is creating lifetime value for a customer across 3 main verticals: Start My Practice, Grow My Practice, which is all about clinic expansion and organic growth, and number 3, Sell My Practice, which is about the exit and succession planning that goes into planning for the sale of your practice. In 2023, the socioeconomic headwinds that are facing entrepreneurs remain: high inflation, high cost of borrowing, shrinking labor pools, hybrid work, and it's making the potential for success of these entrepreneurs even harder than it was pre-pandemic. Pre-2020, it was only 50% of practices or businesses were still in the community 5 years later. So our advice at the start of these series is to have an inordinate amount of time spent in the planning phase, even more so than the combination of phase 2 and phase 3. Important to acknowledge at the start that we're not able to cover all components of what it requires to start a healthcare practice in today's environment. So some of the things that we will not be touching on are things like lease negotiation, the college regulations for the province you practice in, the design of your clinic, the signage, everything that goes into more of a transactional component. What we will be looking at are 3 main components. If you remember back to Grow My Practice, I've used the terms the way to play, which is the planning phase, and that's phase 1. Phase 2 is the right to win, that is the implementation phase. And then we've also got phase 3, which is the capacity for change, knowing that any plan that you put into place is dynamic in nature and never a static 12-month plan that you're trying to live up to. So when we think about the phase 1, it is the how we plan, and it is the way to play, and it follows 3 main components, and these components will stay consistent as we go through all 3 topics. And we will always highlight a strategic nugget, an operational nugget, and a people nugget. Let's dig into part 1, the planning phase, also known as the right to play. As I mentioned earlier, there are 3 components to each of the 3 videos in the Start My Practice series. There's going to be a strategic component, an operations component, and also a people component. So strategy. If we start with a general comment, the more common your business is, the greater chance you will not win come the 3 to 5 year mark. What it alludes to is that you have to understand the market need you're trying to solve in the community that you're going to open your practice in. What are the values and features that your practice will have that'll make a customer switch from their existing healthcare practice to yours? It's understanding that you have to put their customer needs first and understand with clarity what is the problem you're trying to solve. When you wrap that up, what you'll have is a unique selling proposition, also called a value proposition or your competitive advantage. When I think about the competitive advantage for Elevate, in that we make it downright easy for practice owners to extract more cash or profit from their business, and in turn, we create a greater sense of agency for practice owners over their wealth creation. Let's dig into the operational component. The best advice I can give you in the planning phase is to really understand the 4 levers of profitability. The 4 levers are pricing, service delivery model, labor utilization, and volume reload. There's a saying that you make revenue in your cubicles or in your private treatment rooms, and you make profit in your gym. When you look at the 4 components, component 1 and component 4 make up what drives top line revenue or sales, and components 2 and 3 make up what is the labor component, and it drives profit. Let's dig into pricing. Pricing can be cost-based or value-based. In most private practices, it's going to be cost-based. I will charge $80 for a private EHB treatment versus value-based pricing, which you will typically get for a PT-KIN model if you're working with a B2B funder. So the higher the price, the better off that you will be. So in that point, there is such thing as bad revenue. What you are selling is your time, and the more time that you sell at $80 a treatment unit, so typically 15 or 20 minutes, the higher your profit will be. And the more time that you sell at $40 a treatment unit, 15 or 20 minutes, the lower your profit will be. So it's important to understand what type of business you want to be. If you want to be government based, you're going to have a whole different strategy than if you're going to be a white collar downtown in an urban center treating executives at $80, $85 a treatment. Number two is your service delivery models, understanding what are your care maps for private patients, what are your care maps for auto or MVA, and the same for disability, or same for government. How are you going to standardize a service delivery model, and knowing that profit margin for every service delivery model that you have in your clinic. These are talking about return visits per episode of an intake. So knowing your service streams is critically important to the success of your practice. The third point, control labor utilization. It is critical that the practice owner understands this is the biggest expense a clinic will face, typically in that 55% range. If you are higher than that as a percentage of sales, you're going to be in trouble in terms of being able to make a profitable business for yourself. Here's what I mean. So $1 million practice should have administrative expenses or business expenses at the 6 to 8%. So no more than $60,000 to $80,000 a year should be spent on your administrative or your business services team. When we talk about your clinical team, the labor utilization should be in the range of 50-52%. You're trying to keep everything in terms of the cost of goods sold, the labor, under 60%. When you start having that labor creep into the 62, 72, 75%, this is the primary downfall of what makes a practice go bankrupt or a practice close its doors. The owner gives away the value of their practice to the clinicians in the clinic, meaning that they overpay just to keep clinicians in their clinic, to keep their doors open. It is something that needs to be corrected, and having that plan at the beginning of your clinic opening is critical to the future success. So to say it again, gross margin, which is just revenue minus labor, should be 40% or higher all day, every day. Point 4 is your volume reload, and it's having clarity on where you're going for the aggregation of referrals that make the most profit for your business. So these are, where am I going to find those $80 per treatment visits instead of the government related $38, $40 a treatment visit. In British Columbia, you're fortunate to have ICBC at $80 plus, you're fortunate to have WorkSafe BC at $80, and then also charging EHB that premium at $80 a treatment as well. So it's clear that you want to be on that high end. You might have a completely different design. The old G-code clinics in Ontario that were doing treatments for $28, how do we make, or even $18 to make, how do you make a business work on that model? There is a way, but you just have to know the way to play, and that is the planning phase. Let's jump into the last section, which is people. And typically when we start with people, we start with your team members, but we're going to back it up even further and start with you as the future leader of your team members. And it is said that before a leader can become authentic or leaders of others, they have to have a greater sense of how they will lead themselves, an understanding of who they are, both as a clinician, as a leader, and as a boss in the clinic, many different hats to wear. So it is very important that a leader in this stage, you might require working with a coach that's going to help you walk through exercises of how to have greater introspection on who you are as a leader. What are your values? What are your deepest held beliefs? What are the principles you lead your life by? What inspires you? What is your compelling why? And these components really do form the foundation of your purpose and your impact. It's hard to get to purpose and impact if you don't have a true understanding of what you are and who you are as a leader. When I think about the compelling why for Elevate, it was a simple one. It is to eradicate the healthcare entrepreneurial poverty in Canada. I am tired of looking at valuations of clinics where the profit margin is less than 5%. The belief that we have is that at the end of the day, a clinic owner should own more than their job. There should be 20% EBITDA in their practice, and the practice should be worth $750,000 to $1.5 million for a typical practice. That is the reward at the end of the day. So that is the people section. We are passionate about the time that is spent in this section to understand yourself. The purpose impact drives your competitive advantage and why you're opening your practice the way you are in the community that you want to serve. So that's a wrap up of part 1, which is the planning of how to start a practice. It's all about your right to play and having coherence from your value proposition, your competitive advantage through your customer experience, all the way through to your ability to have 20% EBITDA. It is my plan to have parts 1, 2, and 3 of Start My Practice uploaded to the webpage by the start of Labor Day, so hopefully in 2 weeks. And this is Gary signing off from Elevate Practice Intelligence, and look forward to chatting with you on part 2. Thank you.